તો ફિલ્મ વાર્તા નહોતી. ભવિષ્યના બધા માલિકો વાર્તાકારો છે.
Nalin Bhai, and we had actually spoken about last film show back at a film festival in London, and somehow I think we sort of manifested the Oscars, and look what's happened. It's literally now of India's official entry. So, Nalin Bhai, a huge congratulations to you and the entire team of the film, and a huge welcome to you on Filme Shilmy to you all.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, look, I think Nalin, I'm going to go straight into you. I'm going to straight ask you. I think it's very interesting how, we were just discussing before we obviously went on air about, Cinema Paradiso and the effect that it had on you as a filmmaker in that sense, and how literally Chhello Show is basically your story. So, when making the film, which sort of aspects were you delving into? Which sort of aspects really stood out to you the most from your memory when you were making this film?
I think when I was making the film, there were my memory and my friend who was projectionist, Mohammed Bhai, his memory. And there were just collection of stories which happened over many, many years, because every time I've been living nomadic life with my movies, but I will often go back every 6 months to see my parents, my family who still live in Kathiawad where I shot the film. And there will always be anecdote stories that, okay, we are not surprised you're a filmmaker because as a kid you did this, you used to make up stories with matchboxes. Or I met another friend who told me, do you remember we were given free movie shows for catching pigeons in the false ceiling? And I had forgotten about the stories. I said, oh, yeah, of course. So, there were a lot of pigeons in one of the single screen in the rafter. So we were 4 or 5 kids were given opportunity to catch all those pigeons and release them outside. And in return, the manager will let us watch the free movies. So then there was the incident of the stealing the reel, the cops arriving. A lot of these things were just floating, like, how we talk about childhood. But especially in 2010-11, when the big transformation happened, when celluloid was going and digital is arriving, most of the single screen and almost every screen across India, across the world was going digital. This is where there was a collateral damage, which not 1, 2, but couple of lakhs of projectionists were unemployed. They still remain even today, and if you go across India, you will meet them everywhere that, who the only thing they knew is how to project movies, and suddenly they could not run any digital screening. So that story with what I lived as a kid sort of was combined into some kind of a screenplay for last film show, Chhello Show. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. And I think when it comes to the actor who plays your younger self, Bhavin Rabari there, the way he played the role, it was so beautiful. There's a twinkle in his eye, which I am still unable to forget. There's that twinkle in his eye. There's so many aspects to him, which, I can really see glimpses of you, even though I never met you when you were younger, but I could still imagine that. So what was it like for you in choosing Bhavin actually for the role in particular?
I think, as you now know the film, it was a very important role for a filmmaker that if you don't find that vehicle, that lead actor, it will be nearly impossible to make this film, and like any other film. But here is a young persona, and usually you think because it's such a big role, let's start with so-called professional child actors. So which were mainly in Mumbai and Ahmedabad was really disappointing encounter because most of the child actors, they are heavily influenced by mainstream cinema or TV advertising or reality show. It was just totally opposite of what I was looking for in a child. So that was a very first phase was super depressing. Then together with my, casting director, Dilip Shankar, Nayan Rana, Jackie Ramchandani, they were like a whole army of casting, started going across Kathiawad. Yeah. And we were looking into the villages where kids very rarely go to see cinema. So right. One such village was Bhavin, village called Vasai.
Oh,
And
nice.
Bhavin had only been once, once to see a movie, in his 9.5 year of age or whatever.
Right.
So and then this group of 50 or 60 candidates were called to do a retreat in our production base, from which the entire Lala gang was formed. And from day one, it looked. I mean, we knew it could be Bhavin. The only challenge we had to know: can he really carry the film? Will he be consistent? Because he's so tiny and young, and he looked like so fragile. And like when he came, and I thought I can break him into two when I got mad. So it
Right.
was like really. So I just couldn't believe that he could. Can he really carry such weight of the film for so many days of shoot? So
Right.
we did some endurance retreat with him, with Dilip Shankar, to see can he sustain 9 hours of work, and can he sustain meeting different people.
Yeah.
And he proved he excelled in everything, every task we asked him. He just excelled.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. In fact, Bhavin, તમારું આ ફિલ્મ રોલ છે. I think આ તમારો પહેલો ફિલ્મ રોલ છે, right? એટલે
Right.
એટલું ક્લોઝ એક ઓટોબાયોગ્રાફિકલ જેવું એક રોલ હતું. તો તમારા માટે તમને તમને કેવો એક્સપિરિયન્સ હતો? How was your experience of dealing with the film?
જ્યારે ઓડિશન થયું પછી 13 દિવસ માટે અમે ત્યાં ધારી ગયા હતા, ત્યાં સિલેક્ટ થઈ ગયા, પછી 3 મહિના માટે ત્યાં શૂટ માટે ગયા. તે જે હતો સમયનો રોલ, તે માટે અમે એક્ટિંગ ન કરી હતી. તેના અંદર અમે ઘૂસવાના પ્રયત્ન કર્યા હતા જ્યારે અમે 3 મહિના માટે ગયા હતા.
Hmm.
ઈ કેરેક્ટર છે સમયનો, એના અંદર આમ ઘૂસવાની અમે ટ્રાય કરતા હતા. અને અમે એના અંદર બધા કેરેક્ટર સૌના કેરેક્ટરના અંદર ગળી ગયા હતા. એટલે અમે અમારા કેરેક્ટરના અંદર ગળી ગયા હતા. અને તમે અત્યારે રિઝલ્ટ જોઈ જ શકો છો કે કેવું ફિલ્મ બન્યું છે, ઓસ્કાર લેવલે ગયું છે.
હા.
એટલે આમ
એટલે એટલે આ ન્યૂઝ જ્યારે આવ્યું ઓસ્કરનું, તો તમારા આજુબાજુના માણસો, એટલે તમારા બધા રિશ્તેદારો કે ફ્રેન્ડ્સ, હવે શું રિએક્શન દે છે તમને? હવે તો તમે સ્ટાર બની ગયા હશો.
પેલા તો ઈ જ વાત છે કે કોઈને પેલા તો ઓસ્કરની ખબર જ નથી. અને જેને ગામમાં અને જામનગરમાં જેને ઓસ્કરની ખબર પડી હતી, તો એ તો આમ જોવો ને, ઓસ્કર ઓસ્કર આપણે ચાલ્યા જાય તો એમ કે ઉરે બાબા, ઓસ્કર વાળો છોકરો. યાર ભાઈ, હું રબારીનો છોકરો છું, ઓસ્કર વાળો નથી.
Beautiful. Very nice. Super. I love that. I love that. You're a Rabari.
અને
You're a
પછી
Rabari child, not an Oscars child. I love that.
અને પછી ખબર પડી બધાને કે ઓસ્કર શું કહેવાય છે. પછી જ્યારે લાસ્ટ પ્રીમિયમ રાજકોટમાં હતો, તેના આવ્યા બાદ મારા ગામવાસીઓ અને મારા સમાજે મારું આમ મોટું સ્વાગત કર્યું.
Oh, hey. Oh, wow.
હા, હજી તો ખાલી વોટ્સઅપ ઉપર ખાલી એટલી જ ખબર પડી હતી કે ખાલી આવવાના છે. ખાલી જે અમારા છે યુવાનો, તેમણે બધાને કીધું હતું કે ભાવિન રબારી આવે છે, એનું આપણે સ્વાગત કરવાનું જ છે. તો પણ છે ને 400 થી 500 માણસો આવી ગયા હતા. અને બધા એમ કીધું હતું કે આ તો અમને ખબર નથી, તો પણ અમે આમ દૂર દૂરથી આવ્યા હતા. જ્યારે અમને ખબર પડત ને, તો અમે અમારે 1 લાખ, અમારે કુલ રબારી સમાજ 50 લાખ રબારી છે, 50 લાખ.
Amazing. Amazing. But કેટલી
તો
સારી
એમ
વાત.
કીધું હતું કે કોઈને હજી ખબર જ ના પડી હતી, તોય 500 માણસ આવી ગયા હતા, 500,000 માણસ આવી ગયા હતા. તો મારા કાકા કહેતા હતા કે જો બધાને ખબર પડી ગઈ તો કે તું આવજ, તો બધા 1 લાખથી વધારે માણસો હાજર થઈ જાય.
Amazing. This is so beautiful. But બહુ ખુશ થયો સાંભળીને, ભાવિન. હવે તો બહુ ભગવાનની દયાથી બહુ ઊંચો જાય હવે એક્ટરમાં. હવે તો fine roles મળશે. But I think I'm really interested and very curious actually about Richa. So Richa, you are from Rajasthan and you've had acting, of course, experiences before. I mean, I was looking at your IMDb and what I think you've done Mardani too, and films like Running Shadi. I mean, this is your first Gujarati film, and my God, even though there are very few dialogues that you have, your body language. This is one scene actually where I think Samay is getting beaten by the father, and you literally come in and you lift him and you walk away. My goodness, I mean, that was such a powerful, powerful moment. What was what was your experience like of playing Samezma and bringing these very strong but silent nuances to the role?
Um, I think first of all, it was really magical, and I think I was really blessed that I was offered such a role. Sir finally asked me to get on board to play Ba. I think that was one of the happiest moments. And then the story starts. So of course, playing Silis and Samesma uh, gave me the insights into a mother's world. And when you talk about being a mother, I realized, because I am not in real life, but while playing the character of Ba, I realized that mother is like a whole, like, complete world in herself. She has to be full of love, care, protection, strong, soft also, nurturing also. And for that, first of all, and like Ba is also someone who's really satisfied in whatever she has in her life. And I think the main thing that she has in her life is her family. So how and what she can give to the family was really precious for me to live that life, you see. So yeah, and of course what movie is achieving, of course now I am receiving so much of love from people, like you just said. So I think what I gave to the kids, or the set, or the people gave to me, now I'm like receiving it all in like just big amount.
Oh, that is so good. I mean, and rightfully so as well, huh, I must say. I mean, it's wonderful to hear that. But in fact, Bhavin, actually, મને તમને પૂછવું તો તમે જી તમારે જી ઘણા ઓલું ફિલ્મમાં જી કામ હતું એ ઓફકોર્સ ડેડી સાથે હતો, મમ્મી સાથે હતો, તમારા ઓન સ્ક્રીન ડેડી એન્ડ મમ્મી સાથે, અને પછી છોકરાઓ સાથે. એટલે તમારું જી રિલેશનશિપ હતું બધા સાથે ઓફ સ્ક્રીન, ઈ
Team
કેવું
સાથે.
હતું અને ઈ કેવી રીતે તમે ઓલું ડેવલપ કર્યું હતું, એક ફ્રેન્ડશિપ અને એક મસ્તી?
પેલા બધા છોકરાઓ સાથે તમારી પાકી ફ્રેન્ડશિપ જ હતી,
હા
એટલે એમાં તો કઈ વાંધો ના હતો. પણ દીપેનભાઈ જયારે આવ્યા ત્યારે થોડોક આમ તેમના સાથે આમ બનતું ન હતું બેનું. પછી
ઓ
થોડાક
હે
દિવસ થઈ ગયા. હા, પછી હું એમ એક એવો માણસ છું કે હું કોઈને પણ એને વાતમાં ને વાતમાં ફ્રેન્ડ બનાવી દઉં.
ઓ
અત્યારે
હા
તમારી સાથે વાત કરું છું તો તમને ફ્રેન્ડ બનાવી લઈશ. ડિરેક્ટર નલિન સર આવ્યા હતા પહેલા દિવસે, એના હારે હું વાત કરીને ફ્રેન્ડ બની ગયો હતો. કોઈ પણ સર
હા
મને
હવે
બતાવી દીધો
એના
હતો.
સાથે હું વાત કરીને ફ્રેન્ડ બની જાઉં છું. પણ દીપેનભાઈ સાથે થોડી વાર વાત કરી, પછી અમે બે ફ્રેન્ડ બની ગયા. પછી એકવાર રીચા દીદી જયારે શૂટ ચાલુ થવાનું હતું એના 1-2 દિવસ પહેલા રીચા દીદી આવ્યા હતા. તો રીચા દીદી આવ્યા પછી બધા છોકરા રીચા દીદી પાસે વહી ગયા. મને ખબર નથી કે આ કોણ છે, હું ઓળખતો પણ નહોતો. પછી એમ ખબર પડી કે આ બાનો રોલ કરવાના છે. તો અમને બધાને દીદીએ કેવો પહેલા જ દિવસે લલચાવી દીધા. અમને બધાને ચોકલેટ આપી, પણ એ ખારી ચોકલેટ.
ઓહ salty chocolate, oh god.
બીજું તને
પછી
ભાવિન
તે
એ પણ પૂછે છે, અનુજભાઈ, કે તો બાકી બીજા બધા જે હતા ને, કેમેરામેન, સાઉન્ડ, એમની પણ તારે કેમ હોય?
અને લાઇટમેન, પછી કેમેરામેન, કોક વાર છે ને બધા જમવા લંચ કરવા વહી જતા ને, પછી અમે બધા આવતા અને કેમેરો પકડી લેતા, સાઉન્ડ પકડી લેતા, માઇક પકડી લેતા, અને પછી એમ બોલા, રોલ कैमरा एंड एक्शन। ओ नहीं है ये, अच्छा नहीं है, अच्छा नहीं है, चलो दूसरा लगाओ, नहीं पसंद है, नहीं पसंद है। मंसूर भाई क्या कर रहे हो यार, वो लगाओ, वो लगाओ। हम साथ में सब
Oh, now તમે director બની ગયા હતા. That's fantastic. Look, Nalin bhai, I swear he's literally
They
just
used to imitate us. Yeah,
literally.
totally.
I can literally see that. But no, but I think this is what I'm saying. Like, it's amazing how Samay just seems like Bhavin. Like, there's literally that it doesn't even seem like he's acting, very honestly. Even the crying and everything, it was just so powerful. I think it's I mean, kudos goes to all of you as creators for making that happen. And in fact, we were talking about the kids, and I'm really sorry to hear about the passing of Rahul as well. I mean, that was extremely heartbreaking. And God bless his soul, and I'm sure whatever happens, this will all be a big tribute to him, I'm sure as well. But I think when it comes to the Oscars, especially, I was reading up a lot actually about the Oscars and why certain films don't get the Oscars and do not get the nominations. And that's usually because of marketing and heavy promotions. I think, Dheer, for you, finally, I'd like to bring you into the conversation as well.
I was really enjoying myself listening, but
Right. So when it comes to Chhello Show, how important has I think marketing and spreading the word been for you? And do you think that that's definitely really secured our chances of actually getting into the Oscars as well this year?
yeah, so I think that, for any foreign language film or for any film rather, even in the mainstream category, the campaign that one has to put on is centered around bringing as many AMPAS members, Academy members, to watch the film. Because that's the only way they're ever going to vote for the film, right? If they watch it and they enjoy it and they feel like it connects to them and they feel like it pushes somewhat the cinematic boundary or the language of or grammar of cinema per se, and of course, if the story is touching, I think a combination of two or three of these things will get an Academy member to sign up to and vote for the film. So I feel like our campaign, while in India there's been a huge noise on the film, and there's been a massive big publicity, huge PR uptake. As you know, as you rightly mentioned, Bhavin went on to Big Boss and a bunch of other of the popular reality TV and procedural comedy shows that happen in India, like Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma. So, of course, across India now, a lot of people, the title has been like sort of embedded into people's minds. But since the day we got selected as India's entry, our work was silently on the side, began like while obviously this fanfare and the celebration was going on in India and the preparation for the India release. Our work simultaneously began on the campaign itself, where we've been lucky to have two really strong partners in Orange Studio, who's our international sales agent, who has, they've won 8 Academy Awards, or I think 7 Academy Awards
Wow.
for the last 5 years, just for The Artist and The Father. Similarly, our US distributor, Samuel Goldwyn Films, has been nominated for 4 Oscars and won one foreign language Oscar in the last 3 years. So I think that their track record and their understanding of how to navigate the campaign trail has been really enlightening for us. It's been a sort of guide for us to take a lot of our decisions. Of course, Nalin has been invited this year on the directors branch
Oh,
of the
yes.
Academy.
Yes, yes. Congratulations for that, by the way. I was so ecstatic when I got the news, by the way, when I heard that.
Thank you. Yeah. So the Academy has recognized his body of work as a director. They've recognized the journey from his first film of Samsara all the way to where we are now at last film show. So I feel like there the gears are grinding, and the ball is moving. There's still a lot of work to go. We're doing a show next week in France for some of the French Academy members. Then Nalin and me, and some of our cast and crew as well, Richa, Bhavin, some of the crew will be going off to America to do some more screenings there. Exactly. So we have to set up camp for a couple of months in Los Angeles. Do some screenings in LA at a few festivals in LA where we're going to be screening at in New York. So it's been great. One of the other things that's worked in our favor, or at least something that we believe has worked in our favor, is that we were selected at the Mill Valley Film Festival earlier this year, and we won an Audience Choice Award there.
Oh,
And Mill
wow.
Valley is sort of a pocket, a center for a lot of the voting members of the Academy to go and visit, because there's no festival, really big, festival in Los Angeles apart from IFLA, which is for South Asian films, but no big international film festival, for world cinema. So a lot of them travel up to Mill Valley. A lot of them have houses around that area, so they go there around the film festival and watch films quite, very quietly. And the fact that we were voted, the best, for the best international feature, we were voted the Audience Award. I think that speaks for itself, and I feel like the film, at its core, would speak to any, apart from speaking to a wider audience of children and going all the way, we say from age 8 to 80, but it will speak to anyone who's lived with cinema, and who's lived and breathed cinema. And the Academy members, depending on which branch they're from, cinema is their life. So I feel like it should speak to that core emotional stick that the Academy would have. But again, who knows? Every year there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of good films. You're interviewing. You said you're going to interview. There's a lot of good films coming out. So we hope that we get to put our best foot forward.
Right, no, absolutely. But I think this is a very interesting point where, I kind of look back and in terms of the Oscars, we've had some amazing films. We had a Gujarati film actually almost, I think 9 years ago, 10 years, 9, 10 years ago almost, which was the last Gujarati film that was actually the entrant to the Oscars. But why do you feel we've never won? Because we've had some incredible work from India. We've always had some really, really great work. Why do you think we've not won yet, Nalin Bhai? What do you think is the reason that we haven't
I
quite
think
won?
the question is pretty complex. I think very often we forget that the Indian film industry is huge and massive and totally different. I would say our cinematic grammar is way different than what Academy used to. And also, we should not forget that Oscar, it is the American Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science. The word American says a lot about it. It's not at all an Indian Academy of Motion Picture Art, or nor European, nor world. It doesn't represent, it's not even an international academy. So the 95% of work which happens at the Academy is driven by American cinema, American movies. So, this one section is international feature, and so it's not, if you really be there in the Academy, the main talks are about the bigger American studio movies, star-driven movies, independent movies, but they're all American movies. So I think that's one of the reason. And the way I think it's a complex question. One has to probably even go back to the history of cinema. That when we as a country embraced cinema, we instantly imported elements of our folk culture, which is drama, the Bhavai, the Natak, the Tamasha, which always had songs, over the top acting, mashup genre, which is not at all the case in Europe and the US. They can't have an horror movie and suddenly a woman holding candles sing a song. It'll not work. It's just not, they just can't buy that, as a horror movie. Or they cannot buy a hero who, before going on an adventure, will give vachan to his mother, that, Ma, I promise you, I will, do that. And very often he will ignore his girlfriend, over mother. It's every story. I don't want to name them, but the recent one.
Yeah.
So,
But ironically, you were talking about the singing and dancing, but yet La La Land took home so many awards.
So if you are an Academy member, you'll be very puzzled that what's this Indian obsession with mother?
Right.
I mean, they don't get it. Is it Oedipus complex or what's going on there?
Yeah.
And coming back to what you said about La La Land, I think that was a really strict musical. So the genre that they built it with was a musical playing on sort of the nostalgic value of the bygone era of musicals that came out of Los Angeles, the beautiful studio films of the 40s and 50s and 60s, which were incredible musicals. So I think that when Damien Chazelle came back to that in a very contemporary setting, I think that again spoke to a sort of nostalgic era, bygone era of the simplicity that cinema brought with it, and of romantic films and romantic musical dramas. So, but the issue with India sometimes becomes the mashup of genre. I think that I don't think anyone would have an issue, or not that anyone should have an issue, but I think that the musical will never be questioned. But you cannot, I don't think, the idea of having a musical with a horror, but then also a romance and, all of that put together can get confusing sometimes for an international audience, not just an Academy audience, but for most international audiences.
And even in terms of musical, like the Hollywood musicals, there again, cinematic grammar and approach is totally different than the way we have our musical. It's not at all the same. And it just goes to the very essence of how those musicals are created. If you make Star is Born with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, they are the one who will sing their songs.
Yes.
They are the actors who actually perform. If you look at Chicago, the actors perform. So that's a huge difference. And for the Academy, it is still very hard for many of them to even understand what is a playback singer. They've never heard of it.
Yeah, true.
Which is our cultural heritage, the playback singers are,
In fact, Richa, I'm going to ask you as an actor, actually, from your perspective, as an actor, because you've had experience in both, in Bollywood as well as you had in a local language like Gujarati, which obviously is spoken, in mainstream cities too. So, how do you feel your dynamic has changed as well as an actor now, with getting roles which are acting driven and not star driven?
I think sir has taught me acting now, so I can very well look forward to many, many roles coming my way from now. Of course, now in this I played a village lady, and now I'm very confident about myself. You see, now having directed by a person like him, a director like him, now I'm just looking forward to just many more directors just giving me and surprising me with kind of roles actually they can actually visualize me with, because Pan Nalin sir also, he really took a risk somehow, I don't know, but he really casted me for a Gujarati lady. And when he took the audition, there were no dialogues in my auditions. So I know that he really took a bet on me. Not even one time he asked any of the people, "Oh, okay, ask her to send an audition where she's talking Gujarati." And also, that, so there I realized, okay, he's really trusting me on something. So I better give my best, right? So I think that something drives you, and then you're ready to give all that you have. So I really gave my 100%, like, what 100% living is.
Yeah,
You do 100% with all your heart and everything you have got. You really live your day. So I think after getting on board on last film show, I totally lived, like, I think we were shooting for 3 months. And I still remember. I don't think I have lived like this ever in my life or not, but during those 3 months, I was my 100%. So now I'm just ready to do anything, like anything and everything, and and I personally really want to do roles, not just Indian roles, but put me in some like different civilizations, different time era, like, even emotionally or even physically, where I have to really dig something more out of myself, my being, so yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I think also, when it comes to that whole aspect as well, Nalin, by that I was telling you, the fact that, Gujarati cinema, like I said, is on a revival at the moment. There was a really beautiful Instagram post, I'm sure you all must have seen, about how it really is doing well. Like we had Chhello a few years back, which won the National Film Award. But actually, if we trace back and look at even the Smita Patil era as well of cinema, we've had like films by Ketan Mehta, so many movies which have really been rooted in our storytelling. What is your take on that, Nalin bhai, and how do you hope to, I guess, present more Gujarati stories? Because like yourself, there are so many stories in the heartland of Gujarat. How do you hope to take those stories as a filmmaker now as well going forward?
I think for me, first of all, as a filmmaker, the stories are really important before even the language. Probably, so like I did do, film. Samsara was in Ladakhi Tibetan because that story had to be done that way. Angry Indian Goddesses on Hindi English. So I think the question about Gujarati, I've never been sort of interested in kind of an activism of a cinema, like let's promote regional film, let's do indie film, let's do Gujarati cinema. I think that's really not, it would be, I personally, maybe I'm wrong, will be a wrong approach. I just feel that filmmakers have to, we should look at music and literature across the centuries. That's the big proof. When someone was Mozart or Beethoven, when they were composing, they were not thinking that they are going to uplift Austria, or Ravel was, no, they were just thinking that, okay, we need to do good music.
Yeah.
So if tomorrow, if you do, I mean, Satyajit Ray, when he made, or Guru Dutt, when he made Hindi movie or Bengali film, they were just making what was, I've never read anywhere where Ray talks about, oh, because I wanted to uplift Bengali cinema. So I think that would be a very wrong approach. It could be good for the content and all. Having said that, yes, if I do come across great Gujarati stories, there are many, but is there an appetite among producers out there to take up a bigger movie which costs more money? So right now we just end up doing a lot of contemporary setting film, because anything else we do like action or science fiction, either it looks tacky or there's not enough budget to do it.
Yeah.
So I think for Gujarati cinema also to grow in the shadow of the popular Hindi cinema is little hard. It's
Yeah.
not the case of Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu cinema, because in Gujarat, Hindi cinema will work, yeah, and all the Gujarat talent is working in Hindi cinema. You have some of the directors, writers, composers, musicians, they're all Gujaratis, but they are serving Hindi film. You don't have that problem in Telugu or Tamil cinema. They are not working in Gujarat, they are making Hindi movies. So I think that, so there will always be, I think it's a question of demand and supply, because Gujaratis understand Hindi, Rajasthan people understand Hindi, Punjabis understand Hindi. So those industry to blossom like Telugu or Tamil industry will be a challenge always.
Yeah, and I think now though, Gujarati cinema is definitely finding its own voice though. I can definitely assure you
Yes,
that.
definitely. Yeah. So many young, there's so many young, talented filmmakers, actors, so many new experiments are being done, and they are finding audience in Gujarat, as you said rightly. Yes.
And thanks to Abhishek Jain as well, we also have our own Gujarati streaming platform as well, Oho Gujarati as well, which again, the content there is very, very amazing. There's some really great stuff on there, which I was very, very impressed by. And I think, Chhello Show just is also an exemplary of that. But I think for you, Dheer, as a producer now, with your role and backing and providing support for filmmakers, how has Chhello Show, I guess, really strengthened your belief in independent cinema and ensuring that it gets the viewership, the traction that it rightfully deserves as well?
That's a good question. So, like, I think, for me, really, like, I think I follow somewhat what Nalin says, and, we've discussed this quite often, is that I don't really like looking at films as independent or non-independent. I feel like these terms, art house, independent and stuff, have been created for more for people in the business rather than for put it into a viewer's mind. So, as soon as you don't have a star in it, people think that it's an independent film, right? But really, what was independent cinema was non-studio films or films that were produced independently and then eventually get, some sort of distribution. So I feel like, in that sense, to do a film today and to get it out to as wide an audience as possible, at some point in time, you needed a star. You needed the urgency to go to the cinema came from having a star on the poster. Or the urgency came from the fact that you did not have access to video on demand or a streaming platform. So I feel like the way films are being viewed and discovered is changing, and that landscape is constantly in flux. And I don't think there's ever been a larger threat specifically to even Bollywood and to Hindi cinema than there is today. Like, you just don't know. No one has any idea what's working. People are just throwing paint at the wall and seeing what's sticking, right?
Yeah.
I feel like coming back to what Nalin said earlier is that at the end of the day, we have to chase the story. And if you have conviction with the story, that's when you lead to some sort of success. I'm not talking about box office success or any sort of awards. I think that all of those are just sort of milestones and self validation that comes from within the industry. I think the success for any creator, actor, filmmaker would be to get as many people to come and watch the film as possible, and to get as many people to know about your film as possible. Because at the end of the day, you have 3, 4 years, 5 years of your time that goes into a single picture, and actors give weeks, months in preparation or years in preparation, and they wait for years for for the validation. So I feel like the story really would define that success. And specifically with last film show, I remember before it was even a script, before even Nalin had put it down into the format of a feature length film. He had told me his own life story. Once when we were sitting and chatting over chai or something, he told me his own life story, and I remember being so moved by it and being so engaged in it that 2 days later I called him and I was like, Nalin, I'd like to buy your life rights and make a film on this. And he said, forget about it, I don't, and he just dropped the conversation. And then a few years later, when he called me and he said, "I want to make a movie, and would you be open to being my partner to produce this?" And before he could even tell me what it was, I said yes, because first of all, it's Nalin, and I feel like for most producers, sometimes we forget that while the story is important and while chasing that right theme and trying to be timely with the kind of content we make and ride a certain wave of what's working and what's not, at the end of the day, you have to just believe in the person who's making the film. And I know that with someone like Nalin, you could give him, if he commits himself to making a film and he commits his time to something, it could just be a 1.5 page treatment, and it would be a deeply moving cinematic experience. Whether it would do well, whether it would get selected to the Oscars, whether 20 distributors worldwide would buy it, I think that would really depend on the film itself. But you do know that you would push yourself, and you wouldn't stagnate yourself as a storyteller working with Nalin.
Right.
So I feel like at the end of the day, we have to back or we have to partner with the people who we trust, who will bring a certain level of quality to the work that they do and a certain level of passion. And then this coupled with a great story, I feel like that's where I would go, and I think that the whole world is moving towards that now.
Right. And I think also, very well said, Dee. Thank you so much for that. And I think also what I also love, and I told Nalin Bhai this, is that there's a sense of spirituality. So, and obviously as a Hindu, I've grown up hearing so much about our stories from our culture and how even now it has a huge impact on me actually. And sometimes if I'm in a conflict, I'll always reflect back to the Mahabharata and see the sort of conflict that Arjun also faced on the Kurukshetra. And I think a lot of the times, even there was a reference of a Mataji movie as well in last film show, and how literally even there's a flag of Hanumanji as well on the stone, and whilst the dad is going through a bit of a asmanjas, the flag is waving.
Flight.
Yeah, it was amazing how
That's why it's called Pan Nalin flight.
exactly, and
Hanuman taking off.
and the way you literally had that flag, and it's just very amazing how spirituality, and we spoke about that in our previous interview as well, Nalin Bhai. And another thing that I wanted to also highlight is the fact that, thank goodness, the film did not have a Slumdog Millionaire approach in terms of adopting the poverty aspect. I feel like for a while now, a lot of films which try to go and sort of get Academy Award like sort of attention, I feel like they try to emphasize the poverty aspect, but here it was none of that. And I think that was also another very key aspect about your film. And I know you've been very conscious about that, haven't you, Nalin Bhai, of ensuring that it doesn't really fall into the stereotypes,
I
right?
think it has to be, authentic to a place, because poverty in India is super complex. We shouldn't shy away from it. I wouldn't hesitate tomorrow to make a film about poor people in India. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Story must move me. Then I will know that can I do authentic justice? Even if I make kids growing up on a Bombay railway station, it's going to be totally different than a kid in Chalala, or in other parts of India, or kids in Ladakh. I've been traveling. I'm sure we all do. The levels of who is poor, how do you judge? By money, wealth, because they own a car? Or do you judge by how happy they are where they are?
I'm true.
So they might not have money. Like I've been to so many places in Ladakh. They are far more happier than I am, in living their life, So, it's not, it's the question of, is it misery? Are you really, of course, then there are a group of people who really suffer because money stops doing everything, or other people who have just enough to live and they are happy and content. Forget, why even look anywhere else? Look at Bhavin Rabari's family. They have one room house. He has got 2 cows, 1 buffalo, 1 brother, parents, and they are very content. I asked them many times. I asked even mother, no, I don't want to go anywhere. We are very happy in our village. We don't want to go. We're happy. So, so what? And if I start shooting there where he lives, his income might be much less than somebody who is in a slum in Mumbai. But the moment I put camera in slum in Mumbai, he will look more miserable, and then they will say, oh, but he's not poor, So, that's it's not an easy answer to what poverty is, and, and how they live, or how they come, or what you want to portray, So, so for me in Kathiawad, what I had seen as a kid, we had no reference,
Yeah.
we thought this is how the world is, you need unless and until, you are going on a bicycle, but you need to see Mercedes to dream about Mercedes, till
True.
then, there has to be comparative thing. And as a kids, we didn't have any of I don't think any one of the kids I grew up with were sad because, oh, they didn't have a car or they didn't have a television. I just have no recollection, completely.
True.
We just, I remember such good time. And only today I realize that some of them have not come out at all. Two of my friends one is still engine driver. He's there, and he was one of the kids whom I used to play with, and he's poor, he got enough money, but he has got debt. The other one is a farmer, and with a small piece of land. So then you realize, oh my God, that this is now he's much more burdened with modern understanding of what is richness than he was as a kid. So,
Right. Yeah.
so in cinema, the portrayal of poverty is always kind of complex.
It is.
It's you could say the same thing for movies like Bicycle Thieves, or you could say
Yeah.
for Melena. Because every Italian will tell you that oh, if he's so poor, why does he wear suit and a hat? Why is he so worried when his bicycle is stolen?
Yes.
So you need to understand the cultural context of what Visconti was trying to do, what De Sica was trying to do, and it's an interesting debate, and I think, and they all were very true to the landscape where they made the film. They knew they could go to church and get a nice coat and a hat for free, but they will not have money to buy bread. So visually they might look like a gentleman in Italy, but in the pocket they might not even have 1 cent.
Right.
So the Bicycle Thieves is equally poor.
Yeah, true. True. No, it's very interesting. But I think what I really liked as well, and it's like how I said before, is because the West have a certain perception about the poor people
Yes.
in India. And I think what I loved is that you didn't really fall into that stereotype. You didn't adapt that stereotype. You brought what you remember and what your life was about. And I think that's something which I really love. But I think on a more lighter note, Bhavin, મેં તમારા ફોટા જોયા था મુંબઈ પ્રીમિયરમાં અને મેં જોયું હતું કે દીપિકા પાડુકોને તમારી સાથે એક ફોટો પાડ્યો હતો. તો એટલે કેવું તમારો અનુભવ કેવો હતો બધા સ્ટાર્સ ને જોઈને? એટલે તમે કેટલા ફિલ્મોના શોખીન છો તમે પોતે?
હું અમુક થોડાક જ ફિલ્મોના એમ પસંદ છે, જેમ કે છે રામલીલા, પછી ફિર હેરાફેરી, એમ બાબુરામ વૈયાને ઘણા અમુક ફિલ્મ પસંદ છે. પણ એમ મોટા મોટા સેલિબ્રિટી જોયા, મોટા મોટા સ્ટાર જોયા એટલે એમ ના થયું કે એમ તેમણે કાંઈક કામ કર્યું છે તે એ દર્જે હશે અને હું પણ ત્યાં છું, મેં પણ કાંઈક કામ કર્યું છે એટલે હું ત્યાં આવીશ. અને એમ કેના સાથે કેવી રીતે વાત કરવી એ બધું આમ ઈ પ્રીમિયમમાં મને જોઈને શીખવા મળ્યું.
બહુ સારું. ના પણ બહુ સારું. હું બહુ જ ખુશ છું આ પિક્ચર જોઈને. It was so lovely to see. I think Vidya ma'am was also very, of course, very pleased with the film as well. So that was really great to see. I think one of
બત ભરી ભરીને મળ્યા, સાચું કે?
I know, I feel like સાચું નથી કહેતો, મને શરમાઈ ગયો છે થોડું.
કોણે કિસ કરેલી?
Oh, he's blushing. Oh. That is so cute. That is so adorable. I'm sure Deepika would be really pleased to see that.
After watching the movie, the kiss was the answer.
Oh, amazing. That's so beautiful. To get it from Deepika herself, that's huge.
Deepika.
On Instagram, that's all.
Deepika is
This is so cute. I love this. This is adorable. This is super adorable. But I think on a final note, actually, just wanted to get from every one of you, actually, if I can get a comment. Rich, I think I'll begin with you. If Last Film Show does, let's just say hypothetically, hoping that we get the Oscar, what would it mean to you, and how do you think it can really encourage others as well in the future? How do you think it will affect you in that sense?
I think it'll affect us as India, as a whole. It won't be just my win and our team's win. It'll be India's win, and then our cinema, of course. I'm really looking forward to the cinema that India produces after this Oscar win. That's it.
Okay.
And of course, personally, many roles, many travels. Yeah, everything good and many things which I don't know about as of now. You see.
Okay. Nice. What about you, Nalin and then Dheer?
It's not hypothetical. We are going to win. That's what
Okay, fine.
I was going to say.
I'm just covering my back so then in the future when I watch this interview, I'll be like, okay, I did kind of make sure that I gave it both sides.
Yeah, manifest it, man. You manifested
Manifesting
the earlier
it.
part. We manifest this as well. We are going to win.
Yes.
And, I know. I mean, look. Besides the win, because I think the win is up to a lot of things, and at the end of the day, for us, the Oscar is not the be all and end all milestone that we're looking at. I think that what we'll be really excited with, not just with the Oscar, but even with this whole process of getting there and campaigning, is that we'll just get more and more people to discover our film. And discover the immense work that Nalin, Bhavin, Richa have put in onto the screen. The hundreds and thousands of man hours by our entire production team, by the cinematographer, Swapnil, Subhadra. I feel like I want all of these people to get recognized. I mean, not that they aren't, they're already very well recognized. But I feel like having a win or having something like the Oscar just, amplifies that and accentuates that and puts a little bit of a punctuation, a celebratory punctuation to a life of work. So I feel like that's what I would leave it with.
Wow, what answer!
Yeah, got it. I love it. He's very good. Right. So, last words on last film show from the director himself. So, Nalin bhai, what would you like to say about that?
No, I think they've summed up very nicely. And as a filmmaker, I always, dream of showing movie to maximum people. So I think if we do win, of course, I know the exposure to the movie will be even wider. More people will want to watch. They'll, out of curiosity, who won and why they won and whatever reason there are.
Yeah.
But I would say any excuse where many people would flock to watch the movie is a good one for me as a filmmaker. So I'm sure winning the Oscar would definitely enhance that. Yeah.
Right. Well, look, on that note, as someone who's seen the film 3 times, I can definitely assure that this movie is such a relatable film. I mean, I was sobbing so much when I watched the movie because I felt like Samay was me and I was Samay. It just felt so quite timeless in that sense, It was such a relatable film, and I think, kudos goes to you, Nalin Bhai, the entire team of Chhello Show for presenting such a beautiful film and a very important film in Gujarati cinema also. It means so much for our community, and I just wish you all the very best. And thank you so much for joining me on Filme Shilmy. It's been such a blast chatting with you all. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.